Well, Michael Hutchence's half-sister has slammed the Seven Network's telemovie INXS, Never Tear Us Apart, as a complete fabrication. Tina Hutchence says the two-part movie left her feeling sad and angry for Michael. She's with us now, live from San Francisco. Tina, thank you for joining us. This is obviously a telemovie that was watched by millions across Australia. What disturbs you the most about what they said about Michael?
Well, first of all, I would call it a docu-fiction, you know. Yeah. There were a lot of inaccuracies. I mean, for instance, they have a scene where Michael is, of course, womanized. He has a woman on each arm. He's drinking it up, partying, and Tim, and there was a lot of that. Tim Farriss, the much, you know, he's very married. Tim Farriss is trying to tell him that, you know, about infidelity, which is a little bit of a joke in itself. I mean, Tim jumped anything that moved, but on top of that, this was at a time when Michael and Paula had just found out that her home had been raided and they'd found drugs. Now, this is so untrue. This whole depiction is ridiculous. It's designed to make Michael look so bad because, in fact, at that time, Michael and Paula and Tiger were in Sydney for Michael to appear on the arias with INXS. He didn't want to be in Sydney at that time. He didn't want to appear in public at that time. He was having terrible time with the British press, but he was doing it for INXS. And now the band depicts him as being this uncaring womanizer.
That's one of your main complaints, Tina, isn't it? That you don't feel the band has really given him enough credit for the success he brought to them.
That's exactly right. I don't think they have. I mean, he was a man that they've known Michael for over 20 years when he died. I mean, he was 14 years old when he met Andrew Farriss and the other two Farriss. And I mean, that's a long time to know someone. You know, to send him up the river like that is just a terrible thing. And the fact is, they were with him in those last 6 months. He was touring with them on a tour he did not want to be on. He told them he didn't want to go on tour. He was seeing a psychiatrist. He was on heavy antidepressants, and you know, he was told he shouldn't really be going, but he felt he couldn't let the band down.
And Tina, it's been...
Here they get back at him like this.
It's been interesting, though, hasn't it, how we've seen INXS, though, climb to the top of the charts now for the first time in a long time in the wake of the miniseries. Surely that, though, is a good thing because Michael made incredible music. That must make you feel good.
He did. Oh, it does. I think it's wonderful, you know, that legacy goes on. All of Australia should be, you know, happy about that because he belongs to Australia. But, you know, of course, it's lining some people's pockets, but that's okay. You know, I just wish they had handled this miniseries differently.
And Tina, can I just clarify? So, because Michael did have a massive reputation as a ladies' man, are you saying he was faithful to Paula Yates, or that he...
No.
Right.
He wasn't faithful to anyone, but he wasn't married either.
Right. But
and he wasn't a womanizer.
Right.
Let me explain something that, you know, each girlfriend that Michael had, Kylie, Helena, Michelle, and the others, they stayed friends with Michael. Now, somebody has to be very special to stay friends with them.
But he did obviously have a lot of girlfriends. I'm just trying to clarify, you objected to the scene depicting him in bed with two women, which I don't know if that really happened or not, and you said that's not characteristic of Michael?
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. If he did, good luck to him, you know? What I was objecting to is that at the time that they put it in the movie, he wasn't in bed, he was sitting in a bar with Tim, but with a girl on each arm. And he's talking about the fact that this Bob Geldof set the raid on and the whole thing. And in fact, that turned out to be true, we found out later. Bob Geldof and the nanny did set it up. And they show Michael as womanizing when all of this stuff is happening. In fact, Michael was curled up in a ball sobbing, and I know this because my mother was there, my stepfather, Mandy Nolan and Rhett were there, and Michael was so afraid that what was going to happen is that when they went back to London with Tiger, that the authorities would jump on them and he would lose Tiger.
So he was in the midst of some kind of breakdown, is that true?
He absolutely was, yeah.
And speaking
so
about,
this was 1996.
And speaking about Tiger, and you mentioned that somebody was lining their pockets out of the INXS music being popular again. One of the many articles that have been put out has been that the money will go to Tiger Lily. You don't have much to do with her, do you?
No.
Why is that?
No, I don't. Well, I didn't. Bob Geldof, absolutely. And I tried very hard in the very beginning. I took several trips over there to see her and set it up with Bob ahead of time. And he's a very passive-aggressive man. He's sort of, you know, he took her out of the country each time I went.
Tina, the one thing that really struck me when I watched it was the impact it had on Michael when he got hit. Was that accurate?
When he got
punched in the head, and how it changed his whole persona, and he had these rages.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The main thing was he would complain about that he couldn't. He said to me, "I can't even smell my own baby."
Oh.
It affected him a lot because he was a very sensual man. He was food, wine, everything was very important to him. And his senses were heightened, and when this happened, it was terrible for him. And he would fly into rages.
Tina, can I ask, do you believe that Michael Hutchence killed himself, or do you think that he died in an accident gone wrong?
He killed himself. I mean, you know, he was so enraged that he could not get around he had a child in London. He didn't want to live in London. It was very difficult for him living there. The press was just terrible to him. The British press decided he was the bad guy, Bob was the good guy. That always happens with stories in the press. But he just couldn't stand it anymore. He couldn't go out of his house.
Tina...
And he wanted the child to be in Australia.
Tina, I guess the last question we just have to ask you is how would you like your half-brother to be remembered?
As the articulate, funny, charming, loving man that he was. And to really... Look, those lyrics didn't come from nowhere. He was a well-read man, a lovely man with a lot of good friends, and he had a very good relationship with his friends and family.
All right, well,
and I want him to be remembered that way.
Well, Tina Hutchence, the half-sister of Michael, thank you very much for joining us from San Francisco. He's certainly being remembered as a rock legend. The very best album of INXS has hit #1, as Jess mentioned earlier, for the first time in 24 years. And we should probably mention as well that any claims made here by Tina are her views and they have not been proven.